My dear friends, tonight as we celebrate Holy Thursday, we enter one of the most sacred moments of the Christian year and begin the Paschal Triduum, remembering the night Jesus shared the Last Supper with his disciples. The book of Exodus tells the story of the Israelites who were enslaved in Egypt for many years. God called Moses to lead them out of slavery into freedom. Before their liberation, God sent the final plague upon Egypt. On that night, God gave the Israelites special instructions for a sacred meal called the Passover. Each family had to sacrifice a lamb, place its blood on the doorposts of their house, and eat the meal together with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. When the Lord passed through Egypt, the houses marked with the blood of the lamb would be spared. This night marked the beginning of Israel's freedom and became a yearly remembrance of God's saving action. In today's passage, God gives very clear instructions. The lamb must be without blemish, and its blood must be placed on the doorposts as a sign of protection. The meal must be eaten in haste. People dressed, sandals on their feet, and ready to travel. This shows that God is about to act, and the people must be ready to move forward in faith. God also commands that this event must be remembered every year. Passover becomes a living memory for Israel. Each generation is invited to remember that God freed them from slavery and formed them into His people. This reading is especially meaningful on Maundy Thursday because the Last Supper of Jesus was connected to the Passover meal. During that meal, Jesus gave new meaning to the bread and wine, offering them as His body and blood. Just as the blood of the Lamb saved the Israelites, Jesus, the true Lamb of God, gives His life to save humanity. This passage reminds us that God is a God who liberates. When Israel was helpless in slavery, God acted to save them. Their part was to trust Him and follow His instructions. On Maundy Thursday, we remember that Jesus brings a deeper freedom, not just from physical slavery, but from sin and death. The Eucharist becomes our living remembrance of God's saving love. Like the Israelites on that first Passover night, we are also invited to be ready to follow Christ and to live as people who have been set free by His love. In the second reading taken from St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul reminds the Christian community in Corinth about the true meaning of the Lord's Supper. The early Christians often gathered for a shared meal that included the Eucharist. However, the community in Corinth had begun to celebrate it in a careless and divided way. Some people ate and drank selfishly while others were left out. Because of this, Paul reminds them of the sacred meaning of the Eucharist and calls them back to reverence and unity. Paul highlights three important ideas. First, the Eucharist is a remembrance of Jesus' sacrifice. In the Eucharist, Christ's saving sacrifice becomes present for us today. Second, it is a participation in the new covenant established by Jesus' blood. God forms a new relationship with His people through Christ. Third, every celebration of the Eucharist is also a proclamation. Paul says, whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until He comes. The Eucharist points both to the cross and to the hope of Christ's return. This passage reminds us that the Eucharist is not just a ritual, but a living encounter with Christ. It calls us to gratitude, unity, and love. When we receive the body and blood of Christ, we are invited to live in a way that reflects His self-giving love. When I was working in the corporate world, I had an experience I never forgot. A boss gave us a lot of work and then left the office early, leaving the team to struggle on our own. Leadership there meant giving orders, not sharing the burden. Later, when I entered the Jesuit community, I saw something very different. One day after a meal, the provincial quietly took not only his plate, but also the plates of others and went to wash them. It was a simple act, but it showed what true leadership looks like, leading by example. This is exactly the kind of leadership we see in the Gospel of John. On the night before His suffering, during the Last Supper, Jesus does something shocking. Instead of taking the place of honor, He takes the role of a servant and washes the feet of His disciples. In the culture of that time, foot washing was the task of the lowest servant in the household. The roads were dusty, people wore sandals, and washing feet was considered a humble and even unpleasant job. Yet Jesus, the Master and Lord, kneels down and washes the feet of His followers. When Jesus comes to Peter, Peter is uncomfortable and even refuses at first. He cannot understand why the Lord would do such a humble task. But Jesus explains that this action has a deeper meaning. It is not only about physical washing, it is a sign of the love and service that should define the life of every disciple. After washing their feet, Jesus says, "I have given you an example that you also should do as I have done to you." This passage is especially important on Maundy Thursday. On this night, the Church remembers the Last Supper and the commandment of love that Jesus gave His disciples. The word Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, meaning commandment. Jesus' commandment is simple but challenging. Love one another through humble service. This message is especially important in a world where we see so much conflict and violence. In a world still torn by wars, violence, and divisions, we see how pride and the desire for power destroy lives. Jesus shows a completely different path. Instead of domination, Jesus chooses humility. Instead of violence, He shows the power of love. In daily life, washing feet may mean helping someone who is struggling, forgiving someone who hurt us, listening to someone who feels alone, or doing small acts of love without seeking recognition. In our families, workplaces, and communities, we are called to lead not by authority, but by service. Jesus shows us that the true path of discipleship begins by kneeling down in love. When we serve others with humility, we continue the example that Christ gave on that first Maundy Thursday. As we receive the Eucharist tonight, may we also receive the heart of Jesus, the heart that kneels down to serve. Let us ask ourselves, whose feet am I called to wash? May we be ready to love, serve, and follow the example of Christ. May God bless us all.